What's up, friends? I just spent the past 2 hours going over to Made by Google events, watched it live, and I did make a little bit of a comparison chart between the pros and the cons. And let's just say the Rampocalypse or the Ramageddon is definitely a thing. Hello friends, Nathan B Tech here. If you guys have been keeping up with me, you know Pixel is one of my favorite devices, and although they're not the innovative and leading in the industry in terms of hardware, I've always admired their software, and I've always given them a little bit of a pass in terms of the competition due to these improvements in the TPU, etc. However, this Ramageddon, this Rampocalypse is arguably going to impact Google the most out of every other manufacturer from the looks of it. So one, Google's always liked to play it safe. They've never been a spec head. They've never chased the higher numbers. They've always done it for the average consumer. And arguably, it's what's got them the most traction in general. It has led to a lot of people switching from iPhone over. Google wants to position themselves kind of as the bridge between Apple to Android. Google kind of giving the more baseline experience, the more smoothest experience, the fastest update experience, the most social experience, etc. They've never tried to beat Samsung or any of these other manufacturers in raw horsepower. And you can kind of see that especially with AI. AI has always been the cream of the crop with Google. They always lead, they always innovate, they have the features first, just because that appeals more to the average consumer in day-to-day usage things, right? However, the biggest thing that you see online is Google Pixels are the worst in terms of innovation. They do the same thing, they barely upgrade their phones, and I think it's finally caught up to them in such a drastic way. I don't think Google was prepared for how bad the Ramageddon was going to be, because now they've actually lost features compared to gaining features. And now they're in a very, very tough situation where they have to really flex their muscles in software, which is arguably good for all of Android, but not good for Google. Not good for the Pixels. So I did make a list in terms of what we got and what we lost. And like I said, very, very vague in the stuff that they were talking about. Obviously the biggest one, the one that we worry about every year, is the Tensor processor. This is actually very interesting because it is so underwhelming that the whole press conference, Google did not talk about it not once. They did bring it up, but they did not give any specs. They were very vague. They said it was better, and then they did not mention it the whole Google event. On the Google website, I did verify and look for myself. On the website, it at least kind of gives you a little bit more of an understanding on the Tensor G6. It is a 50% more powerful TPU. So once again, Google's kind of leaning more into the AI. The TPU is what covers AI. A little bit more stronger, a little bit more quicker with the AI, usage, right? It's going to be 20% more efficient. I wish Google went with the lithium carbon, and then that would have been kind of a little bit better in terms of the overall scale of things. Since Google did have to, sacrifice a lot of things, they could have easily went that direction and it made it look a little bit better, but this is what we're dealing with. And then lastly, regarding the Tensor G6, Google does advertise a 15% faster app opening rate. This is the only benchmark that they've shown regarding how much faster it is compared to the Tensor G5. The only thing that they can say is it's 15% faster in opening apps. Now granted, will you notice a 15% difference in opening apps day to day? Maybe, maybe not. So in terms of the processor, it's almost like it's a net neutral. It's not going to be, maybe the efficiency gains you could have seen be better. Now, trying to stay more on the optimistic side of things, Google finally did put a bigger sensor in the 11 series cameras. Not all of them. The telephoto sensor on the Pixel 11 Pro and 11 Pro XL is going to be 30% larger. So in terms of day-to-day usage, you might see a pretty substantial difference in terms of just better photos in general. Now, a lot of the things, once again, are going back into software, but we're not really going to talk about software in this video just because every Google Pixel device will eventually get these software updates. So good news, if you are looking into the 11 Pro Fold, is that it did actually get the larger sensor. So the Pro Fold has been behind for quite a while, being the smaller sensors, and you can kind of see that in my review regarding the Pro Fold. It just did not match up in terms of the Z7 series and the Motorola Razr Fold, it just could not hold up with the brightness in terms of the sensor size, especially in low light photography. So hopefully this is going to be a actual upgrade. In the Pro Fold category, it's only getting a slightly larger screen. It goes from a 6.3 to a 6.4, I believe. Essentially just shrinking the bezels down a bit. As we talked about previously, the processor is going to be a net neutral. It's not really going to be better or worse, since you're not going to notice that battery gain potentially. The screens have gotten slightly brighter. It's going from 3,300 nits to 3,600, I believe. It's just such a minor upgrade. It's just definitely not going to be something that you're going to be looking into. In terms of charging, this is back to where we go with just specific devices, and it's so hard to look on the Google website because it's so vague. But the Pixel 11 and the Pixel 11 Pro got Qi 2.2. So you do now have 25 watt charging on the Pixel 11 and Pixel 11 Pro. Last year that was exclusive to the 11 Pro XL. So actually you do have it on the Pro 11 Fold as well. So there's one additional feature that you can get if you were deciding to do a trade-in. That's actually pretty clutch, because the magnetic array is great, but I was wishing there'd be faster charging, and you do get that on the Pixel 11 Pro Fold. But now the Pixel 11 Pro Fold is going against such fierce competition like the Razr and the Z Fold 8 and the Z Fold 8 Ultra and all the other guys coming out. It's just not very compelling. Like, I'm sorry. I'm really trying to like fight for Google here, but I mean, if you're just looking at it band for band, like, it's not doing well right now. And of course, there is the feature that is called highlight. Good news, Google did actually kind of talk a little bit more about it regarding what it's capable of. I know the initial videos coming out regarding the highlight only specify the Gemini Assistant as well as calls. However, on the Made by Google event, they did kind of go a little bit more in detail and say that there will be more customization going forward regarding messaging and stuff. So we do have a little bit of grace there, but it's just not doing much compared to what a Nothing phone can offer. Now, this is where we go to the losses, right? The losses. And once again, it's very vague on Google because it doesn't say starting at 16 gigabytes of RAM. It is now saying up to 16 gigabytes of RAM. So obviously you do have to spec up in a higher storage configuration to get these 16 gigabytes of RAM. I'm sure Google didn't want to do that since they want to be on the bleeding edge of AI. So this is definitely a hurt to them. But we are in the RAM apocalypse. We are in the Ramageddon, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And unfortunately, the AI phone cannot keep up. So RAM took a hit, right? We're going from 16 gigabytes of RAM from the Pixel 10 series down to 12. That's a 4 gigabyte RAM difference. That's quite a lot, especially if you are planning to use the AI capabilities. This is probably the best time to get a Pixel 10 Pro while you can. However, considering how bad the RAM apocalypse is, I'm sure Google's not planning to make many more of them. So that being said, I think it would be advantageous to pull the trigger as soon as possible because there might not be any available. They're going to clearance the item from the looks of it because it just doesn't make sense for Google to just keep that going and pay more RAM on the 10 than they would on the 11. This is a great time to get the 10s while they're still around, or the 10 Pros, as well as the XL, in case you're interested, while they're still around. Battery, as we talked about with the battery took a hit on the Pro Fold 11. It took a hit because they're trying to make it a little bit slimmer to compete with Samsung and Motorola. So once again, could have solved that with lithium carbon, but they decided not to. And then this one, not a big deal for me, but it was a little feature that was kind of important back in the day. The temperature sensor also took a hit to make room for the highlight. So arguably, this is just a huge mess. This is the craziest release that I've ever seen from one phone to the next phone. This is just all over the place. Granted, the AI features and the features that we all love Pixel will still be there, but if you are planning to use this as a performance device, I just can't see it. It's not necessarily much faster than what the Pixel 10 series will offer. If it is a little bit faster, it's not noticeable unless you're doing AI task. But then the AI task, you have less memory. So it's just this big pile of what is going on right now. Obviously, the incentives are going to be great. Trade-ins are going to be great. They're kind of taking a little bit of a inspiration from what Samsung did. Obviously, let's give higher trade-ins to kind of make up for this, right? However, Samsung didn't go back in RAM. They were always at 12 gigabytes of RAM. So Samsung kind of saved themselves there unintentionally. This is going to be tough, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you still interested in the Pixel 11 series? Is it just completely off your radar? Because honestly, I did watch a video and someone mentioned that, you know, mid-range phones might actually be a little bit better in performance than what this Pixel 11 is going to offer, and it's not far from that. If you look at the Nothing Phone 3 for reference, this phone's already been out for nearly a year, and it's kind of on par with what the Pixel 11 Pro is, and it's what, $799 versus $1,100. This is not looking good for Google. Google's really got to flex their muscles. Obviously, they're advertising to the average consumer, which realistically might not see this video, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I just wanted to hop on to kind of give my opinion. Not trying to be negative, but kind of looking at what the Ramageddon and what the RAM apocalypse is kind of doing to the phones. This is the first initial hit that we've seen from any big manufacturer in terms of, yeah, this is happening. Samsung kind of just raised the price up by $100 and called it a day, but Google not only did all of this, but they also raised the price up on like the standard 11 series. Granted, I get it, it's $899 for the 256, but once again, back to my debate, the Nothing Phone 3, 512 gigabytes, 12 gigabytes of RAM, bigger highlight sensor that's actually customizable. Cameras, we're not gonna talk about cameras. Bigger battery, bigger screen, same amount of speed. Google's in a tough position, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Until then, I'll catch you guys in the next one. I will be having a Pixel 11 Pro review coming soon once the phone does come out, so make sure to give me a watch, subscribe. Till then, peace.